You are listening to The Soul's Quiet Call, written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 31, Building New Foundations. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine that filled the garden outside their apartment. Meera sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea cradled in her hands, staring out the window at the delicate movement of the branches in the breeze. A faint warmth from the rising sun bathed her face, and she smiled to herself, content. It was a moment of peace, of stillness, a stark contrast to the storm that had raged between her and Aarav just months ago. Aarav walked into the room, his presence filling the space as always. He had been quiet recently, more introspective, but there was an ease to his movements now. The weight he'd carried for so long, his guilt, his fears, his hesitations, had lifted, leaving behind a man who was, for the first time, truly present. He leaned against the counter, his eyes meeting hers with a tenderness that made her heart flutter. "Morning," he said, his voice hushed, as if not wanting to disturb the peace they'd found together. Meera looked up at him, her gaze soft and affectionate. "Morning," she replied, her smile widening. There was a newness to their relationship, a fresh layer of understanding that both of them were learning to navigate, step by step. Aarav moved toward her, his steps were deliberate. He bent down, brushing his lips against her forehead in a gentle kiss. "What are you thinking about?" She took a slow breath, setting her cup of tea down on the table. "About how much has changed. How different everything feels now." Aarav sat down next to her, his fingers lightly grazing hers. "Different good, or different bad?" His tone was teasing, but there was an underlying sincerity, a need to understand the depth of her feelings. "Good," she said immediately, her voice firm. "So much good. But it's also new. We're still figuring it out, aren't we?"
"Yeah,
"We are," Aarav agreed, his voice quiet. "But I think that's okay. We're building something. Something real. Not based on our past mistakes or fears, but on what we're becoming." Meera turned to him, her heart swelling at the thought. "I like that. What we're becoming." Aarav's hand reached out to clasp hers, their fingers interlacing. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately. About what we can be together. Not just in the sense of us as a couple, but as individuals, too. We've spent so much time in the past defining ourselves by what we've been through, what's happened to us. But we're not those people anymore. We're who we choose to be now. Together." Meera nodded, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I want that, Aarav. I want to build a future with you, not because we need to, but because we want to. Because we're choosing to do this together, even with all the uncertainty that comes with it." Aarav squeezed her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm with you, Meera. I've never been sure of anything in my life. And I know there are still challenges ahead, but we've already faced the hardest parts. We've faced the truth. Now it's about moving forward, building a life, day by day, with trust, honesty, and love. That's the key, isn't it?" Meera said, her voice low but certain. "Trust."
yeah,
Aarav replied, his gaze intense. "And respect. Respect for each other, for our individual journeys. We can't keep depending on each other to fix what's broken in us. We're not perfect, and we never will be. But we're perfect for each other, as we are." A quiet moment passed between them, one filled with a sense of unity, of two people who had finally learned to see each other, not as broken souls, but as equals, partners in every sense of the word. "I've always feared that I'd never be able to let go of the past," Meera admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "That I'd always carry it with me, like an invisible weight. But now, I don't feel that way. Not anymore. I feel lighter, freer, because of you. Because of what we're building. Aarav smiled, the soft curve of his lips reaching his eyes. I feel the same way. The past doesn't define us. It's a part of who we were, but it's not who we are now. And I think that's what makes this, whatever this is between us, so special. Special, Meera repeated, her heart fluttering.
Yeah.
It feels that way. They sat together in comfortable silence, their fingers still entwined, the weight of their shared history now replaced with the promise of what was to come. It was a quiet realization, a mutual understanding that the future was no longer something they feared. It was something they would build together, brick by brick, stone by stone, with patience, respect, and love. I think we're ready to start planning, Meera said after a while, breaking the silence, her tone thoughtful. To build something real. Not just in terms of our relationship, but our life. What we want out of it. What we want to create, together. Aarav raised an eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Well, we've always been so focused on what we should do, or what we can do, based on our pasts. But what if we just started thinking about what we want to do? What we can create from this moment forward. No more holding back. No more fears. Aarav let out a breath, his mind processing her words. So, you mean, like, planning a future that's built on what we really want, not what we think we should want? Exactly, Meera replied, her eyes shining. Maybe it's time we both stopped living in the shadows of our pasts. We've been given a chance to start fresh, to create something new. And I want that. I want us to create something beautiful, something that's just ours. Aarav's hand tightened around hers, his voice filled with resolve. I want that, too. More than anything. They spent the rest of the morning talking about their dreams, their hopes, their fears, all of it, laid bare between them. It wasn't about making grand plans or setting lofty goals. It was about the simple, quiet choices they would make each day to live in the present and build a future, not from what had been, but from what could be. Do you ever think about how much we've changed? Aarav asked later, as they moved into the living room, their conversation still flowing easily. Meera smiled. All the time. It's crazy to think about how far we've come. How different we are now from the people we were when we first met. Aarav nodded, a soft chuckle escaping his lips.
Yeah.
I barely recognize that guy anymore. And I don't recognize that woman, Meera added with a playful grin. But I like who we are now. And I like where we're going. The sunlight streamed through the windows, bathing the room in warmth, and for the first time in a long while, both of them felt at peace. Their relationship had been built on a foundation of honesty, trust, and understanding, and now they were laying the first stones of a future they could be proud of. There was no more fear, no more hiding. There was only the promise of tomorrow, of a future they would create together. Step by step. Day by day. Aarav leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. We've got this, Meera. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. Because this is our foundation. And for the first time, Meera knew it was true. She had never felt more certain, more alive. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And together, they would build something beautiful.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Refer to the channel playlist for a better experience and close your eyes to let your imagination run wild. Subscribe.